Hey look! We're in Vegas!
Yay! Can we go in and see?
No. Hey, so it's been a hot minute, and this video is kind of one of the two reasons why. It's basically because I've been in Vegas for like a week at the end of March, and then I came back to so much schoolwork. I'm like graduating in a month. Anyway, I don't want to make it a habit of doing storytime videos about places I go to. I did one for when I went to Canada, and I could have done more for the small, quicker places I've been to since then, such as going to spend some time with my dad in a different state, for instance. But this is not a travel blog channel, and I don't want it to be, and frankly, having to make a video about every single new, interesting place I go to is kind of exhausting. If I'm going to be making videos about places that I have been on like vacation to, then they have to have some kind of important reason. I made that Canada video, for example, because I have never left the country before, and I thought it would be fun to share that experience as someone who spent their whole life in America. And even though, yeah, technically Canada is right next to America, and they're very similar, there were still differences that were noticeable to me, the dumb American. And besides, I did not spend years making Fallout New Vegas fan content, or making a whole actual play show set right outside of Vegas in order for me to not make a video about the time I finally got to experience the gambling capital of America, right? Anyway, you guys should go listen to Revelations Nevada. Just saying. Wink! But first, as always, the art for this video. It's been a bit since I recorded some of my animation process, so here are a couple of scenes I had to splice together for my senior film, We Ignored the Signs. This is at about the halfway point of the film and includes me doing some rotoscoping. Machines are so hard to animate by hand. Trust me, I had to animate GLaDOS once, so people who remember that, if you know, you know. So I made some 3D models in Maya and animated some shots on there before transferring the files over to Clip Studio Paint. As of this point in writing the script, I'm working on the shots after these two, and by the point of me recording this script, I only have 9 scenes of the whole thing left, which is... yeah, can you tell how busy I've been? Anyway, I got them composed in the final film already, and I should be sharing a clip of that to you guys at the end of this video. So stick around for that. I got about 40 seconds of animation left at this point. Like I said, only 9 more scenes of recording it. I actually have it on the script here. It says something completely different, so we are just going to rewrite that. And I am excited to show you guys the full thing when it's done. I am dying on the inside. I make it sound like I actually am. I've just been really busy this semester. But, however, if you really want to see what I've got cooking up, if you are on the Myonic level on my Patreon, I did post the first like minute-ish of the film on there for you guys as a little apology thing for a delay that happened. Basically the week that this Vegas trip happened. I could say whether or not how much of it is. The final video has been a little bit altered since after I made that one clip because that was just specifically for a check-in. But I submitted it to that check-in, and then I was like, I can make this look prettier, and I did. So it looks even cooler. But you guys get to have the clip of it before I made those changes. So, anyway, now that that's out of the way, let's go on to my Vegas trip. So, now here is the thing. If you did not tell from that very first clip, this technically was not my first time in Vegas. I mentioned living in San Diego when I was in middle school, so I'm going to tell the story of the brief time I was in Vegas, the first actual time. My family used to travel for work, and because of that, we moved around often. When we first moved to California, we made a road trip of it, so when we left San Diego for Maryland, we did the same thing again, right? Well, one of the places we ended up driving through on our way to the East Coast was Las Vegas, and I wanted to go in, because I, being 14 at the time, knew Vegas was a big deal, but my parents didn't want to. I ended up getting a couple of very sad photos of the top of the Luxor as we passed by, but I didn't actually get to have that Las Vegas experience like you're supposed to. So now that I'm in my late 20s, I can say that 14-year-old me wouldn't have had as much fun in Vegas as they thought they would have, other than the brief, wow, this place is really different than any other city I've been to, emotions, because it is. It's so different. There is a reason why Las Vegas is famous. But now that I'm more than 10 years older than them, I can have the full quote-unquote Vegas experience. And big trips like this trip was pretty last minute in regards. If you want, like with planning trips, for instance, the Canada one has been planned for about roughly a year before I actually did that trip. This one was different. I've been on last minute trips before. Some, couple years back, some friends and I did a, 1-day trip to New York City, and that wasn't planned. We, literally, it was just, a week between, hey, let's go to New York City, and us actually going. And I mentioned in my 2023 video, I convinced my friend Joe of Revelations Nevada fame to come with me to Savannah to help me grab the rest of my things from my old dorm. And I asked him to do this 2 weeks before we actually left to go do it. Pretty last minute. In the Vegas trip's case, Joe asked me if I wanted to go to a wedding. His mom was getting married, and she told him that he could bring a +1. We wouldn't have to worry about finding a hotel, as that would be taken care of, only the plane ticket, and I thought, sure, why not? I didn't jump into it right away, though, when he first asked. Joe asked me just before the school semester started, and I knew it was going to be a busy one since, like I said, I'm going to be graduating this semester, and I have my school film. And also, I've been working on a video game for another class, and I have 3 other classes on top of that I have to do work for. I have another animation. I have a photography assignment that I am hoping I get permission to go into an abandoned hospital for. Maybe I'll keep you guys updated on that. I don't know. I haven't actually asked yet. And if that doesn't work out, I'm planning on going someplace else. And I have a big old paper due, which is the least exciting of these things that I have to get done before I graduate. However, the pressure of my last semester at university had not hit at that point, so I decided to ask my professors what the work would be like the week of the wedding. I mostly wanted to avoid having a final exam or anything on that week I get back. None of my classes have exams with the exception of one of them. It is cultural convergences, so it's an art history course about the kinds of art made when 2 cultures converge with each other and all the different horrible and sometimes cool ways that it happens. But that one was actually the week before spring break, so it was good, and it actually kind of worked out in my favor. I can spend my spring break getting through as much of the workload as I can done, and I catch up with that week's assignments a week early, bring my laptop with me to work on anything else that I have time for, which really didn't end up being much, but I still got to work on a little bit of it, so that's something. And for the most part, it worked out really well in the end. I got almost to the halfway point with my film, all the work in my game class wanted me to do before our first sprint, and all my other assignments that would have been due the week I got back. I almost finished it 2 weeks early, and one of them even actually got an extension that was not due to me going to Vegas. But not only that, I managed to finish 4 pages of In Harmony in a week, pushing my current buffer to just at the end of the semester. So if I need to, I could take a break from drawing pages. I got, currently my workload is, I'm working on, the second week of July's update. And I'm recording this on, the 17th of April. So that gives you kind of an idea of how long my buffer is. So by the time Joe came to my house the day before our flight to pick me up, I was satisfied with the work I got done and not feeling stressed out about how much I'm going to have to do when I get back. It's hard to feel that way when you already got so much done after all, and I'm a bit of a workaholic. Side note, I did have a shit ton of stuff to do, but hey, it worked out at the end, as you can tell. I finally have time to actually record this. And so I was ready to conquer New Vegas. Visit Las Vegas. Only visit, not conquer. We woke up at 3 a.m., getting our things together, and I set the mood of our trip by calling for a Lyft that was supposed to show up at Joe's apartment complex in 10 minutes, and ended up announcing our arrival time of 3 minutes after the car loaded in, which is great! In any situation that did not involve us still in Joe's apartment, many floors above where we're supposed to meet the driver. We managed to get to the lobby as the car was pulling up, and since it was 3 a.m., it wasn't like there was anyone who was in a rush to get anywhere. After a 40-minute drive, we arrived at the airport, got on the plane, taking a layover in Dallas before heading on to New Vegas, arriving at the city at 11 a.m. I just realized I call it New Vegas. That is probably going to happen a lot in the video, but to be fair, on my script, I have it just abbreviated as Vegas. So, if I end up accidentally calling it New Vegas, I'm sorry, but the Fallout fan of me is speaking. Now, I have not been to the West Coast since I was 14. The closest west I have been to since I moved from California was on, like, the one flight I did take to visit my dad back when he lived in Corpus Christi. Las Vegas isn't super far away from San Diego, and of the things in California I did miss, it is the one fast food place that the East Coast does not have, and that is In-N-Out Burger. Now, I know some of you guys are like, In-N-Out Burger is so overrated, but first off, your guys are both wrong and could shut up. In-N-Out Burger is good. It is good fast food and not on the East Coast, and Las Vegas has one on the Strip that we immediately made a beeline to. Fuck having our luggage with us. We got to the incredibly crowded In-N-Out Burger, got our food, and were given to a table by a very nice group of people who saw us with our luggage and were just finishing up their food. So don't worry, we did not push people out of their tables. They actually called us over to give us their table. So we sat down and enjoyed our burger and fries. It was pure bliss. After 13 years and a 7-hour-long flight, I got to sit and eat In-N-Out Burger. I deserve this. Anyway, they need to put In-N-Out Burger in Maryland or I am going to scream in somebody's ear. After we toured through cheap fast food, we went on our hotel, which was in one of the big casinos called the Aria Hotel and Resort, which for me is especially funny for reasons. Go read my webcomic. We dropped off our bags, but didn't catch our bus long enough before we started heading off back to the stretch of the Strip we started at, walking back to check out a bar that was near In-N-Out Burger called I Love Sugar. There were a few along the Strip, but this bar doesn't exist where we live, and they offer these gigantic shareable alcoholic drinks, and Joe, who had been to Vegas recently before the Strip, recommended it. I recorded a video of our drink, as a bunch of places did these tricks with liquid nitrogen to make the drink smoke. I've never seen that at a bar before, as a lot of the bars that I've been to are mostly in the, DC area, so it was neat to watch. Even if it did froze half our drinks into an inedible slushie near the end. After we were done, we walked around the Strip some more, checking out other casinos and hotels before making our way to another bar called The Cabinet. I should probably say this now, but a lot of the places we went to were bars while we were in Vegas. Generally, there's at least 2 or 3 things you have to enjoy doing in order to have like a really, really fun Vegas experience on the Strip at least, and that is drinking, gambling, or spending money. And unfortunately, drinking was the only thing that we enjoyed the most on the Strip itself. But we did have fun. Don't worry. So anyway, back to The Cabinet. We went to a lot of bars, but this is the one that we mostly went to. The Cabinet was one Joe really, really wanted to take me to because it was both a bar and a little Curiosities museum. They also had a second bar behind it, but we'll get to that later. The vibes of this place were amazing. Think like Artifact Storage in the Magnus Archives was also a bar, and the atmosphere was a lot more chill and a lot less busy than most of the other places in Vegas, especially the bars, which were usually packed with people who are not walking around. This bar, I think, was only, packed once, and we were, at the tail end of it. Basically, it was a huge party of people that were leaving just as we were showing up. We ended up spending a lot of time here, sipping drinks, chatting, shooting the shit, and drawing. This place even had TVs that played old films and animations from the 20s and 30s, which, as someone who is studying film and animation, thought it was cool. I like old black and white films. I'm also taking a black and white film photography class too, so I've been messing around a lot with that. But this was still early in the afternoon, and the jet lag had not completely caught up with us yet. The Strip is a huge place with much room to explore, so we decided to walk down to the Las Vegas sign for some photos, while exploring the hotels and grabbing some Taco Bell along the way. We only went into a few, but there was one that I really wanted to see, for multiple reasons. One being that it was the only hotel I really saw the one time I went, quote-unquote, to Vegas. I'm talking about the Luxor, of course. And of course, Revelation Nevada fans may understand the, other reason Joe and I had to stop by this hotel.
Has Drake ever been to Las Vegas?
He drove through Las Vegas.
Well, Chaz has been to Las Vegas a lot of times. So Chaz knows a lot of stuff about Las Vegas. More than I know about Las Vegas. So Chaz shows Drake around some of his favorite parts of Las Vegas. They go to the Space Needle. They walk down the Strip. Those are the only 2 places in Las Vegas I know. They
Can
go
I
to
just say that I love how Chaz's favorite places are the absolute tourist traps? Like, it's gonna be like, Chaz goes to Circus Circus. Hasn't Circus Circus been closed for years?
Yeah. Chaz takes Drake to that glass pyramid that's also a Bass Pro Shop.
Wait, that's in Vegas?
Isn't it? I think it's in Vegas. There's a glass pyramid in Vegas. I don't remember if that's the one that's the Bass Pro Shop. But in this universe, it is the Bass Pro Shop.
I do not want to ruin your parade by the information I just looked up.
You know what? Doesn't matter. On the DM, there's a Bass Pro Shop in the glass pyramid in Las Vegas.
It's in Tennessee, actually, but go off.
We walked around inside, and it was huge and cool, with the gamer room and a bunch of other things in it, but we didn't stay long before we continued our walk. Joe did get this funny picture of me pointing at it. There was a moment where I flicked it off, and I was like, "Fuck you, Pyramid, you always were a Bass Pro Shop in my head!" But he didn't catch a picture of that, so he got this picture of me pointing at it. By this point, but as we were walking, our feet and our backs were hurting really bad from the combination of sitting on a plane and walking around since 3 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it was reaching sunset at that point, and we were finally feeling the jet lag. And anyone who's been to Vegas is probably like, "Daryl, why don't you guys just take a tram to the closest hotel?" Well, for one, Vegas has essentially zero signs anywhere. You want to find something in Vegas? Let's hope that the casino floor has a sign to it, because the rest of the strip certainly doesn't. The staff? They're just as confused as you are, and they work there! We asked the staff multiple times, different people, for directions to the tram. Even in our own hotel! And none of them knew where the actual thing was. The people who work at the hotel do not know where the tram is! The mysterious entrance to the mysterious tram! You could see it flying around Vegas everywhere. People riding it like they're fucking riding a roller coaster. Where's the entrance to the tram, Vegas? Hello? Guys, this strip is a maze! A maze of half-naked people, and booze, and very confusing signs that don't point you to the directions you needed to go to. And even the people who live there don't understand where the tram is. Where's the tram, Vegas? Tell us where the tram is, Mr. Vegas! And here's the worst part. The strip is a straight shot. It is one long road. And they couldn't even put a sign to make you find where the tram is. It should not be this hard. Most of the directions to get from one hotel are just from go to the right or go to the left. You couldn't go, "Oh yeah, the sign says the tram is here on the 3rd floor, put directions somewhere, Vegas, Mr. House, whoever owns the city, put a sign." Signs are helpful. I like signs. Signs are great. You want to hear about signs? I can tell you all about signs because, oh boy, they certainly help. Anyway, before I lose my mind today, why don't we continue on with the rest of this before I lose it about the tram situation? Anyway, we persevered, and we managed to make it to the sign on foot without the help of a useful tram as they flew around us above in the air, mocking us. There was a long line of people waiting to take their photos in front of the sign, but we were only interested in getting photos of the actual sign itself, stepping off to the side, taking a photo of the sign before we took a lift back to our hotel. We ended the night going to a speakeasy and a donut shop in the area called Easy's that had caught my interest, specifically because of this cool mushroom drink that did the same liquid nitrogen trick as from I Love Sugar earlier. But honestly, I just really liked the earthy looking drink itself. We ended that night with a great conversation with the bartender about mixology and being artists before heading back to our hotel room and going to bed. And that ended our first day in Vegas, which was fine because we had a full day ahead, starting with us waking up at 4:30 in the morning, which is early, but keep in mind that this is the equivalent of waking up at 7:30 for us if we were still on the East Coast. We figured out how to properly open our hotel's window. It was automated, so we had like flip switches on the side, and we watched a gorgeous sunrise. We then decided to get breakfast and made our way back down to Easy's, where in the mornings it operates as a small coffee and donut booth, disguising its barroom secrets. We took our food and coffee over to a bench, ate, then went back upstairs to our hotel room and chilled for a little bit. I worked on my senior film and got a scene rotoscoped, which funny enough was a scene that happened just before the ones I recorded for this video specifically. I almost died spraying on some sunscreen, and I grabbed a Dr. Pepper to drink as we headed out to walk some laps around the strip, killing time in nearby hotels while we waited for 9 o'clock to roll around, grabbing another lift from the Aria to an area outside the strip called Area 15. Now Area 15 is this giant place with restaurants and bars and a bunch of other stuff to do, all while being lit up with neon lights and UV paint. It's got a whole lot there, and I wish I was able to appreciate it more, but I wasn't able to for reasons we'll be getting into. But it is also home to one of Meow Wolf's installations known as Omega Mart, and that is where we went first. I had fun taking it all in, as this was Joe's second time in Omega Mart, so he just let me lead around and just decide what we got to do. We explored the store floor and the back of it, looking at all the rooms. I love this one hall with a mirror. It looked like there was a free-formed door hanging in a long hallway. It gave me very big Michael Distortion vibes. I kept making jokes that Las Vegas was absolutely a spiral and buried domain, which, with the gambling and the confusing walkways, yeah, it is. We also checked out Omega Mart's bar, which all of them have one apparently, before walking around the rest of Area 15. After we had our fill, we went to a nearby sushi bar for lunch and had some good sushi, splitting a roll and getting each our own, since I wasn't filling up for a large meal at the time. And then we continued walking around Area 15. At this place I started feeling pretty sick. I was getting heart palpitations and getting really burpy and chest pains, and I didn't really know what was wrong. It cleared up eventually, but I wasn't able to really walk around after lunch because my gut felt like it was trying to explode. Not in a having to go to the bathroom kind of way, but more of a xenomorph is trying to jump out of your chest kind of way. It was not pretty. I genuinely thought I was having a heart attack, and I didn't know why. We ended up leaving and heading to the One Piece Cafe since it was nearby and we could at least see something cool while sitting, and after some time in the cafe I was feeling a lot better. It kind of worked out that way because we were talking about going before we actually went, but we couldn't figure out time for us to justify taking a lift to it. So this at least ended up working out. Since I felt better, I was just happy to go experience the One Piece Cafe. It was really cool. It wasn't until later that I realized that it might have been because of the Dr. Pepper I was drinking. I drank it pretty quickly while we were waiting to go in, and I had a bunch of bottles of it with me, and I noticed I got really burpy when I drank it, which didn't happen with me with soda normally, much less with Dr. Pepper since it's my favorite soda. And it was a 6-pack of sodas, so there was 6 of them. I could have been ingesting too much carbonation, but it didn't happen again for the rest of the trip. Mainly because I was drinking my soda so carefully at that point, I really did not want another, feeling like my chest was dying again. But like I said, after a bit at the One Piece Cafe, I was feeling a lot better. I had a lemonade, and we hung out for a bit, catching Pokemon on Pokemon Go and chatting before we took a final lift back to the strip, meeting up with Joe's family for dinner at the Wynn. All of us ended up going back to that strip of stores by the link in order to get a ride on the High Roller, where we got to see the giant sphere that's just in the middle of the desert and certainly brightens the place up. Horrifying, but we got to behold the orb, as well as all of Las Vegas from so high in the air. Joe and I split from the group real quick to grab a drink on the go from I Love Sugar, then met up with them in front of the Bellagio to watch this fountain show. I've seen shows like this before, but this definitely was the biggest one, and changed depending on what song was playing at the time. It was a lot of fun. We chatted, more of Joe's family came by, and Joe and one of his family members and I split from the group to head back to Easy's. Easy's was only open for 2 of the nights we were going to be in Vegas, and we enjoyed the bar so much the night before that we wanted to go back. It was a lot more crowded this time with very loud music, but it was really funny approaching the donut shop and seeing the confusion we got from Joe's family member. This was one of those speakeasies that are really hidden unless you know where to go. So to someone else looking, it looked like we were just going to a donut shop that was closed, which was really funny because there was people standing in front of it, so you know something was up, but the donut shop was also very obviously closed. We spent some time inside talking and listening to music playing. I snapped a photo of a new friend I got at Omega Mart earlier that day, and it had probably the best old-fashioned I have ever had in my life. That is the only drink I know how to mix in my head and memorize. But, God, I really want to get into mixology. But it had the downside of me getting horribly sick that night. Don't be like me, kids. Please be more responsible. That's all I'm gonna say. Luckily, that was the only time I got that sick. I ended up bouncing back after a hearty breakfast of greasy food and coffee. Our third day was the day of the wedding. We killed some time before the wedding, wandering around the Aria, but ended up meeting with Joe's mom to get to the chapel. The wedding happened. I'm obviously not going to go into details about that for privacy reasons, but it was fun, so that's all you guys need to know. We got a ride back to the Aria for a celebratory dinner and cake with Joe's family before everyone went off on their own to do their own thing. Joe and I had reservations for the Lock, a speakeasy that's hidden in the cabinet, which I mentioned there was another bar behind the cabinet, and so to kill some time, we checked out some hotels we didn't really have the chance to explore. We saw this big statue and this big old aquarium in the mall attached to Caesar's Palace, which was pretty cool. Had to go to Caesar's Palace for some reason. After some time wandering, we got bored and tired and went back to the cabinet, spending time in one bar before going to another. To be fair, though, this easily was one of our favorite places we went to the whole trip. It's a good bar. If you ever go to Vegas, guys, I recommend you guys go check it out. It's a very good bar. I believe it's inside the Horseshoe. So, yeah, go to Vegas, go to the cabinet. There you go. The Lock is the bar that it's like a speakeasy behind the cabinet. The Lock does this thing where they have you fill out a little questionnaire and the bartender makes a drink based off the answers you give. I got this like smoky floral apple thing that was like the perfect amount of sweetness and the alcohol and smoky taste I really like in some drinks. Just an absolute 10 out of 10 drink. Joe and I had more fun just chatting and drawing, talking with another party that was right next to us, and later the bartender who came by to see if we liked what he mixed us. Like, if Vegas has like taught me anything, it's just like, yeah, mixology is like such a cool art on its own. I really want to know how to make good drinks like that. We end the night walking back to the hotel room and going to bed, resting before our last full day in Vegas. We woke up early on our fourth day to an early start as Joe's family had plans to go see Hoover Dam and Lake Mead. I was particularly excited, mostly because I love architecture. Yeah, that's the reason. Love architecture, especially historical architecture. And not because the New Vegas fan inside my head had so many jokes that I had to keep to myself. During the tours we did, mostly kept to myself. I did take some pictures and sent them to my Fallout friends, making jokes about how I was gonna conquer Hoover Dam and personally fistfight Caesar. Did I actually do that? You decide. We only did a tour of the power plant, as the other tour they offered would have made us late to the ferry ride around Lake Mead, but that was fine because we still had to go inside the dam and walk through the old tunnels they made while they were building it. The tour was pretty quick, but we made sure to walk along to cross to the top of the dam, making the long and treacherous hike from Nevada to Arizona and then back again. This is a joke, just so you know. If you don't get it, Hoover Dam is like directly in the middle between, like on the border between Arizona and Nevada. Just a little fact for people who do not know Southwest America. After our hike across the dam, we made our way back to the car and took a short drive to Lake Mead. After a snack and a long wait, we were able to get on the ferry and take a joyride up to Fortification Hill. Hi, Caesar. Up to Hoover Dam, then back around again. It was hot compared to the late March temperatures of Maryland, so the nice lake breeze really helped stave off the desert heat. I felt like a lizard, which is to say, the weather was perfect. After the ferry arrived back to shore, we went home, passing through Boulder City, which was looking less devastated than I remember it, and Searchlight, finally getting to the outskirts of Vegas, where we got dinner. We made a quick stop at the pawn shop that the TV show Pawn Stars took place at, then Joe's family dropped us off at Fremont, an area of Vegas we haven't explored yet, and we walked up and down the street, seeing how it was compared to the Strip. Completely different, with screens that imitated the sky above many neon lights and huge signs. We found a bar called Nerds, waiting to get a quick drink, and I ended up getting jump scared by Walter White. After our rest, we decided we got our fill of the small strip and went back to, and you won't believe where we went, but back to the cabinet again! What can I say? We know what we liked. We had one last night of chatting with the bartenders and other attendants at the cabinet, got our last drink in Vegas, then headed back to our hotel, grabbing a few things along the way, and had our last night in Vegas. Our plane wasn't going to be leaving until almost 2 p.m., and we had to go out of our room by 10 a.m., so we had a good 4 hours to kill before we had to go back, and here's the part where I talk about something that I have been completely avoiding talking about in this video. Until now. So a well-known fact about me is I am a huge fan of the Fallout series. I made many animatics and animations with my Fallout characters, and have written a lot of my own lore for various OCs who are not just the characters I play as in the games. Hell, I even recently streamed Fallout 1, and plan on streaming Fallout 2 when school is over, and I've been slipping little references to Fallout New Vegas through this videos, so it's not hard to agree that I am a fan. Well, Joe is also a fan of Fallout, and Joe, who had previously been to Vegas a couple months before this trip, also talked about how he had really wanted to take a lift to Good Springs, but they were so expensive. If you want to know how expensive a lift from Vegas to Good Springs is, Depending on the time of day, I will say, because that's something we found out while we were there, is if I ever needed to take a lift from my job to my house, or to my house, from my house to my job, which is a longer distance than like the distance between Vegas and Goodsprings, it costs me, like, with the rideshare app I use, it costs me about $30-ish. A ride from Vegas to Goodsprings can cost about 4, maybe 3 to 4 times as much. So when he went to Vegas, Joe didn't go to Goodsprings. But a week before the trip that we took, I brought up the idea of maybe spending one day renting a car and driving there. Renting a car for a day through the well-known car rental company I have rented cars from usually was like about $40 to $60 a day, which, yeah, is a lot, but, I mean, how many times are you going to go to Vegas? And with the state of the world burning at the moment, if you're going to be going there and plan to go there, why not just go while you're there, you know? Well, we ended up quickly shooting the idea down because it was so soon before the trip, and we already had somewhat of a solid plan for how the week was going to go for us, but the idea never died, and it stayed there, like a loose piece of sand, kind of like a death claw. So, on the day of the wedding, we were being driven back to the hotel from the church by one of Joe's family members, and we talked about what we were going to do that day, having a quick lament about expensive Ubers. Until I checked my phone, seeing the current price of the car ride app I used, which was different from the one Joe used, and it was now the price of a rental car. Joe checked his app and saw the same thing, and we decided, yeah, that evening, let's go to Goodsprings. Well, it didn't end up working out because we got in the car, told the driver where we were going, and he said he didn't drive that far out before kicking us out of the car and leaving. We could have caught another cab, but we didn't want to risk the possibility of someone not wanting to drive out to Goodsprings to bring us home, even if we found someone who was willing to let us get to Goodsprings in the first place. I kind of get it, driving through the strip looks like hell, and that's where all the money would be at, but it still really sucked, especially if you're going to accept the drive and then ask us where we're going before deciding not to do it. Like, you have got to know where our location was going to be before you accepted that, right? I don't know. It just sucked. And Joe's family member did offer to drive us out there, but they offered to do it on the day that they were going to go off to go do their own thing, and we didn't take it because we didn't want to tear them away from the plans they already made that night. I don't want to pull away someone else's vacation plans on hold just for mine, and they were already so nice the whole week, I would have felt like an asshole. And even though they did offer it, I still would have felt bad. But on our way back from Hoover Dam the next day, we decided to look at rental car prices. But the prices kept changing, and they were like going from like, you know, what I expected to absurdly expensive just for the one day. And it wasn't including the deposit that these places usually have you give them. There was a moment where the rentals were reasonably priced, but then they would like go twice as much. It was very weird, and it sucked, and it was too expensive, and at this point I was just ready to give up. Vegas was fun, but there was a reason that Obsidian put Cazadors and Deathclaws between Goodsprings and Vegas, and their names were Asinine Prices and Uber. I accepted our fate, and I thought of what we could possibly do to kill 4 hours while having to lug around our luggage. I accepted our rough final day of Vegas, and I sat defeated by the thought of never going to Goodsprings, Nevada. But Joe had not. Joe, who had already experienced the heartbreak of being unable to go to Goodsprings, was not ready to quit. While I was wallowing in my thoughts, Joe was on the internet scouring, searching, comparing, until finally he found it. A reasonably priced rental that we could pick up, drop off at the airport, and not pay a whole arm and leg for a one-day drive. A car I was willing to drive for us because I have had drive rentals before. A car that we could use to finally reach Goodsprings, Nevada. So our final day in Vegas arrived, and we woke up early, gathering the last of our things before leaving the hotel early. Although Goodsprings was a short, straight ride out of Vegas, we wanted to get there around the time the general store and the saloon opened. We checked out, took our lift to the airport, got the car, and made the drive to Goodsprings, Nevada. The drive was a nice straight shot and wasn't eventful, which was a nice change from the pace of the things already happening in the city of Las Vegas. A nice quiet drive where we just listened to my tunes, since I was the one driving, and chatted about whatever. We got to Good Springs about 20 minutes before the general store opened and decided to walk around town. Good Springs is a very small town, but it's very nice with historical landmarks and a walking tour you could do by yourself. I assumed at the time that maybe there was a tour guide that took you to look around, but with our time limit for how long we were there before our flight, I understood why Joe didn't suggest waiting around or looking for one. It wasn't until we were almost back at the general store that I realized that the signs had QR codes that you could scan and learn more about each of the structures as you passed. And that was the reason exactly why Joe didn't bring up looking for a tour guide, because unlike me, he noticed the QR codes on the signs and what they were for. I was quite embarrassed that I didn't realize that sooner, but what are you gonna do? I'll remember it for if there's a next time. Which I'm hoping there is, because I had so much fun in Good Springs. One thing that was funny that did happen on our walk, though, was I was playing Pokemon Go, as I got back into the game last year, and I like to do my daily tasks. And while walking back from checking out the cemetery, I caught not just one, but 2 shiny Pokemon almost back to back. So we got Benny the Lunatone, who Joe named, and Easy Pete the Survivor. We went back to the general store and talked to the woman who was running the store that day. She was so nice and told us about some of the Fallout-themed events that happen in town occasionally, some Good Springs lore, talked about some of the people who live in town or come and visit, and just what's like actually living in Good Springs. I live in between 2 big cities, and the smallest town I've ever been to before before this point were still significantly bigger than Good Springs is, and it was nice to learn about how it's different from the kind of small town life I grew up with. We had a long chat, but decided that we really needed something to eat before we went back on the road, so we went to Pioneer Saloon to go get lunch. I picked a table where a guy died at, near where the bullet holes that were still on the wall were, because I'm a bit macabre like that. We of course went to check out the Fallout Memorial there, and I may have left a little something of my own. For those who come by and visit, you might want to take a look for it. If you ever stop by, you know, you should go to Good Springs if you're a Fallout fan. It's a really cool place. I also met Easy Pete, who, I'll tell the truth, I didn't know he was a real guy, and I was very nervous, but he was very nice and awesome to talk to. We even got a picture together, but I'm not going to post that because I don't like sharing my face if I can help it. But though I was talking about this very funny picture that Joe got of me earlier at the Lexor, but it's fine. But we got our lunch, ate it, proceeded to leave, getting to the airport, and eventually going on our plane, taking it, having a layover in Chicago, and going back home to the East Coast. And by the time I typed up this part of the script, the weather had dropped back down to the low 40s after being in the nice desert heat, and I miss it. I love that heat. It's been like on and off, cold and hot, and it's like I want the weather to make up its mind. I love the heat, but I love it more without the humidity. But that was about it. I had a lot of fun hanging out with my best friend, and I of course would not have been able to go without him. We got to see Vegas, progressively get closer and closer to the Strat Hotel as we made our way over to kick Mr. House's ass, conquered Hoover Dam, fist fought Caesar, and Joe, that mad lad, managed to fight against not 1, not 2, but 3 Death Claws, the actual GOAT. Go give my friend a high five. I like his blue sky down below. But enough about milking out references, it's the end of the video. And that, of course, means shelling out my work! I honestly love this shot. I have a couple in this film that I think are different and fun from my usual compositions in my animations, and the 3D models also help out a lot. I'll have to use them more for future projects, though I am probably going to be switching to Blender, especially once that Maya Student subscription runs out. And if you are new to the channel, stick around. I do storytime videos, tutorials, and more. I recommend podcasts, and occasionally I make animated films. We Ignored the Signs is set to be finished no later than May 7th, but the film itself probably won't be posted until sometime after that. It's going to be a very busy month ahead. I want to see if I can submit it to any local animation festivals, since I live near a very prominent art school and want to read up their rules beforehand. So stick around until then. But it will be posted, and patrons on the Myonic level, again, got a sneak peek at the first cut of the film before the extra polishing I did to it. So if you want to see that, along with early access to updates of my webcomic In Harmony, then you can find the link to my Patreon down below. Thanks for watching, I hope to see you around! Bye!